down the line and everything was coming together, and you get on a couple of websites and everything is gone. You don't know. You think that nothing was decreed for you, and Allah knows. There were many good things decreed, but now they're gone with the wind. Why? Because of sins. Sometimes you even feel it, and you see it. You have a job lined up, or something along these lines, and you pull a couple of stunts, and next thing you know, they call you, they say, we're sorry, we don't have any vacancies anymore, blah, 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 it's gone. Sometimes we actually sense them. Sometimes when we actually, as one of the Salaf used to say, when he would disobey Allah outside, he will see it in the behavior of his wife and his children, and even his animal. You get in the car and it's not starting, you better start, visiting your previous actions. Hey, what was I doing yesterday? Why is the car not running? Why is my wife acting up? And the wife should ask, why is her husband acting up? These are issues where people fall into sin that make calamities. We have very particular teachings about our conduct with the other gender. Sometimes getting a little loose in this area will destroy you. These evil websites, visiting these evil websites may destroy your marital life. It may destroy your wealth. It may destroy your children. Even the children will pay the consequences of the evil of the parents. So the matter is not light. Sometimes you think that when you disobey Allah, it only involves you. It involves you, your family, the community, the whole Muslim ummah. The whole ummah is affected with sins, as we will see later on. The whole ummah is affected with sins. So we need to really pay attention. If Allah blessed you with a good family, don't forsake it. Don't ruin it over something ridiculous. And we need to fear Allah Azza wa Jal and slow down. These sins will catch up with you, and one sin leads to another. It's a domino effect. It begins with small, it continues to grow until someone is destroyed. Be careful, my brothers in Islam and sisters. Thirdly, among the consequences of sins is that it makes matters complicated. Everything gets complicated, and the evidence for that is the opposite. Allah said, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Another ayah, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. Whoever has taqwa of Allah, He will make a way out for him from every difficulty, and He will provide him from sources he or she do not expect. In another ayah, whosoever has taqwa of Allah, He will make his affair facilitated. You go to get your driver's license, right? And you're supposed to wait in line for 3 hours, and you forgot some papers and so on and so forth, and you come across a brother who knows you from the masjid, and boom, 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 everything is done legally. Not saying you're cutting people off or pulling some of these stunts. With the halal way, you get your thing facilitated. It happens very often, and sometimes it's the opposite. A very simple thing becomes impossible. Whenever we are coming across these things, whenever you see things getting facilitated, then inshallah, probably it's because of your righteousness and avoiding bad deeds. Whenever things get complicated, then we need to reconsider what we're doing. It's probably because of sins. Things are getting complicated. Fourthly, humiliation. One will be humiliated. وَمَن يُهِنِ اللَّهِ فَمَا لَهُ مِن مُكْرِمٍ. Whosoever Allah humiliates, there shall be none to honor him or her. And the opposite. If Allah humiliates someone, then no one will be honor them. If Allah honors someone, no one can humiliate them. So if one of us finds that in the community where he is at work, he's always being humiliated, he's always being looked down upon, not because of his religious commitment, because of other reasons, then this is probably an indication of sins. And it's a consequence of sins. When Allah honors you, now of course, you will always find the enemies of Allah who will never be happy with your obedience to Allah. Now we're not speaking about those people who when they see you practicing the deen, then they don't like you, they may humiliate you because of your obedience. Because we have other ayat where Allah told us that those who are, the disbelievers, yaskharun, they make fun and mock those who believe. But I'm speaking about matters that are not based on your religious commitment. Not based on your religious commitment. If in the dunya there's humiliation associated with your lifestyle, it's probably because of sins. If we were to leave alone these sins, Allah Azza wa Jal will honor us. And the biggest evidence that we can quote is Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Today, if you have been to prison, if you've been to prison, spent many years in prison, are you considered to be a person, from a noble family, who is respected and people will open their arms and give you a job? Or will they think 20 times before they even speak to you? Because they say this is kharij sujun, right? He's a graduate of prisons. So someone who, prison is not a very entertaining place. Once you go to prison, usually you are associated with crimes and, you're a criminal. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah died in prison. He died in prison. For what? For the sake of Allah. For the knowledge of Islam. For the fatwa he was given. Can't you find, if you love the sunnah, if you don't love the sunnah, you don't like him. But if you love the sunnah, don't you just love Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah? You just love him. You don't know who he is in the sense that you met him or you had some coffee with him. You don't know what he looks like. You don't know how he dressed. No idea. We just love the guy. We love him for the sake of Allah. Why? Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Allah honored him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him. Even though his humiliation, worldly humiliation, appeared to be so because of the dunya, but it wasn't because of the deen. Subhanallah al-Azim. Ajib. Fifthly, miserable life. If life sucks, you see it sometimes in the comments that people leave on all these websites, they're always depressed, always down, nothing is working out. If life sucks, guess what? It's because of sins. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. This is in the dunya. وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى قال رب لم حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا قال كذلك أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها وكذلك اليوم تنسى. Whosoever turns away from the remembrance of Allah, the Quran, the Sunnah, the deen of Islam, then verily he shall lead a miserable life. Allah's promise. This is in the dunya. And we will gather him with the rest of the creation on the day of judgment blind. He will say, my Lord, my Master, why am I blind today, even though I used to have vision in the dunya? He wasn't blind in the dunya. Allah will say, such our ayat came to you, and you turned away from them, you forgot about them, and similarly today you will be forgotten. What is the main reason? Turning away from the remembrance of Allah. That's one of the biggest sins. For you not to practice Islam. And everything in Islam is one of the biggest sins. If you don't do it totally, you're not a Muslim, then this is the biggest sin ever. If you're a Muslim and you practice half of the deen, then wallah, it's not befitting. It is not befitting. Look at the Sahaba. Look at the Tabi'een. They sacrificed their lives for a hadith. They sacrificed their lives for the maintenance of this ummah. They fought in the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. Their lives, their own souls. Forget about money. Their whole lives was only for the deen to be maintained and given power on earth. And today, Islam is between us and Allah al-Musta'an. Allah al-Musta'an about our sacrifices to the deen. If we don't, the least we can do is to show appreciation to the effort is just practice. If we're unable to do what they did, the least we can do is practice. This hadith which comes to one of us, wallahi, you don't know how many people walked, thousands of kilometers. And, spent maybe thousands of days. And, maybe some people lost their lives for a hadith to be narrated to us. Through the chain of narrators. Bukhari, where he had to go to collect the hadith. It's not a joke. And the hadith comes to one of us. The least we can do, the least, to show appreciation is put the deen into practice. Act upon Islam. Stop playing games. We don't have to play games. We don't have time to play games. The ummah doesn't need jokers. It needs real people who practice the deen of Islam, who give da'wah to the deen. And each one of us should find the urge within himself to become among those. Get involved. Before you can give da'wah, you have to practice the teachings of Islam. Otherwise people will not take the da'wah. Many people will not take from someone who they know that he goes against his own teachings. So we need to, realize this and know that if life is miserable and we're blinded from the truth, it's because of sins. Sixthly, it prevents a good end. The al-khatima, al-hasana, or husn al-khatima, the different Arabic words use the good end, meaning you dying in a manner that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dying in the state of worship. Dying while being engaged in ibadah. Versus dying while committing a sin. Now, as they say, whoever lives upon something will die upon it. If you live upon something, you will die upon it. If 40% of your day you're smoking, then the chances of you dying while smoking are very high. Right? Because 40% of your day is puffing on some cigarettes. If 60% of your day you're listening to music, then chances of you dying while listening to music are very high. Now if you don't listen to music at all, is it possible that you will die while listening to music? No. Not willingly, that is, unless there was a music in the background. Now if you're among those who read the Quran all the time, or you read the Islamic books, 40% of your day is involved in da'wah, then what are the chances of you dying while being engaged in that? They're also high. So however you live your life, usually you will end in that fashion. If we are involved in sin, then the chances of dying in that sin are very high. And that's not a joke. Dying at the bad end is the worst thing that can happen to you. Because the most important thing is khawatim al-a'mal, the way the deeds end. So we need to be careful of the bad end. How many people have died? Some of these shabab, may Allah rectify their condition, they go, drifting. They get these cars and they don't even know how to drive. But they want to be cool. So they can, upload their silly 2-minute video on YouTube. And I've seen people die. They get in the car and, they drive in, then they let the car skid. It's drifting right and left. And then a bunch of guys are standing in the corner watching. The car runs right into them. A guy flies, 20 feet up in the air, lands down and he's done. He's done. That's the way these are shabab. In Ramadan, a couple of guys, and I read this in the newspaper, a couple of guys fought in Ramadan. The other one went and got his brother, and the other one went and got his cousin. They came back, and the guy stabbed the other one to death. Here in Jeddah, down the street from us. Stabbed him to death in the night of Ramadan. He started, on the ground. Blood was flowing, and by the time they called the ambulance and everything, and the boy died, 18 years old. A'udhu billah. This is one person is in the salah, crying in the salah, and the other one is with the knife killing a Muslim. But that's what it is. And these things happen. These things happen. Why? Consequences of sins. The bad end. Seventhly, darkness in the heart. You feel that your heart is dark, and you're unable to do good deeds. You find that there's like a restriction, there's a barrier between you and doing good deeds. And there's this your heart feels tight and constricted. You feel like there's darkness. You don't feel the sweetness of iman. And this is very important. And Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, speaking of him, he said there's a Jannah in this dunya. If you don't enter it, you will not enter the Jannah in the Akhirah. And what is this Jannah? What is this paradise? It's loving Allah, being delighted by knowing Him, being delighted when remembering Him, having that state of tranquility and sweetness of iman. If you don't have it, it's probably because of our sins. كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Nay, but it has covered our hearts what we earn. Wallah, that's what happens. We continue to earn sin, and the heart becomes dark, and many black spots are put on it, until it becomes like the back of a pan, as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, a back of a burnt pan. Now, and there are barriers against this heart. You give da'wah, you remind, you read the Quran, you don't benefit. It's blocked. There's a blockage. How to remove it? By repenting to Allah from these sins. Last but not least, and this is very important, corruption in the land. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Corruption, evil, mischief has appeared on the land and in the sea because of what men have earned with their hands. Men as in men and women, both men and women, because of what humans have earned with their hands.